Welcome to Behind the Brand, stories and strategies for building your creative business. This is brought to you by the Pinegateroad Studio. You're listening to episode 38. Welcome to Behind the Brand, stories and strategies for building your creative business. Here we take a deep dive into the brands of heart-centered businesses and entrepreneurs and unveil behind the scenes into how they're building their brands, as well as tips and tricks to how you can build your own dream business. I'm your host, Kelsey Kerslake, and I'm the founder of Pinegateroad, a branding studio for businesses and entrepreneurs ready to get their brands completely figured out. From finding your core values, making that beautiful brand identity that speaks to your ideal audience, to figuring out how to style and strategize your social media platforms and launch your new website, we're here to guide you each step along the way to build your dream business. Head to pinegateroad.com to get in touch today about working together. Hello, you guys. Welcome to Behind the Brand. I am so pumped to have you here today, as always. So today we're going to be talking with Megan Gilger of The Fresh Exchange. She is giving us a life update on how things have been going. If you don't follow her yet, she started off as a blogger about 10 years ago. She started right when she graduated from undergrad, and she built her business. She started doing freelance and has just been growing and growing from there. And she has built her business into so many different things over the years, but all really relating around her passions, what she's loving, what her and her husband and her now baby are doing in their lives. In the past, that has included a ton of traveling. And now they've moved all over the country. So hopefully they will, she's going to be going over a lot of this, but now they are building their forever home up in Michigan. So I was really excited to kind of get to know a little bit more of the details behind why they started to move, what they were doing in their business, and just generally how she is living and loving life with a little baby on board now. So I hope you really enjoyed this episode. It was really fun to catch up with Megan. We go far back, but I've never gotten to really have an in-depth conversation like this with her. So I'm really pumped to be able to spend this time with her and get to share her work with you guys. She has a lot of great things to share. So I hope you enjoy. This week's Branding Bite is brought to you by audibletrial.com. Head to audibletrial.com/pinegateroad for your free 30 days and a free download of your choice. So today I really want to go into starting small with anything that you're trying to do that's new in your business. So maybe you have this big interest in, just say you want to start hand lettering and you get so pumped over learning hand lettering and starting it, and you have all of these big dreams and everything. I love that you have those big dreams about these new things that you're wanting to start, but I would really encourage you to put it out into the world in a small way at first, because that momentum of doing something bit by bit is really going to grow you into what you're meant to be doing long term. So instead of holding back, not showing anything to the world until you're perfect and you have this big thing ready to share with everybody, I would really challenge you to just start posting on Instagram, start to get people's feedbacks, maybe put it on Facebook, maybe even do a live webinar showing yourself hand lettering for maybe not the first time, but just say, hey, I'm learning this. Would you want to learn with me? And do that in a small way first, just to gauge people's interests, and so you can kind of switch things up as you grow. So I really think that it's awesome when you can start small and just grow from there, and things will evolve a lot more naturally than if you wait to reveal this big thing that you haven't put out into the world yet. So that has been this week's Branding Bite. This week's Branding Bite has been brought to you by audibletrial.com. Head to audibletrial.com/pinegateroad for your free 30 days and a free download of your choice. Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a quick little note that this episode is going to be a little bit different. Megan and I got on the phone and then just started going at it as far as our conversation went. And I usually do a little intro to introducing the person before I hit record, but because we got into the nitty gritty so quickly, I wasn't able to record any kind of introduction. So we are just going right into it with this one. Just wanted to give you a little warning. So enjoy. you're like, I kind of, you're my person that's like, you know how like people are living the life you want to live in like a couple years and you're like, I'm aiming towards that. And like, you are totally that in my life right now. Cause I'm like,
that's awesome.
yeah, like I've always wanted to build my own house and like live in nature and all of that. So I'm like, okay, like save the money now. And hopefully that can be our reality in like 3 years. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's totally possible. I mean, working for yourself, it's totally possible. I mean, Mike and I work, for ourselves, and we're doing this. So I think you just have to, we have this thing, and we tell our son, even though he's only a year, like we tell him all the time, like you can have anything you want, but you just can't have it all. And I think that's so true. And especially when you're an entrepreneur, you really know that. And yeah, you can't have everything. And sorry, I'll say it again because Mike's like, you didn't say it right. He says, we say, you can have anything you want in the world, but you just can't have everything. And so it's so true. So we've just taken that approach when it comes to our life. We've just decided, what do we really want? And the life we want is to have this house that is this farmhouse, and we want to farm, and we want to live that simpler life and quieter life. And it's not right for everybody, but it's right for us. And so
absolutely. And then you probably had to give up. Like, I know you guys are big travelers, but did you, like, some people's dreams are like, I want to be this travel blogger and like do my business from the road. Like, are you giving up some of that to have that more stable, simple life that you can take care of in Michigan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we feel like, we feel like we really lived our 20s, like we really took advantage of everything, and now we're at this point where it's like, we had those awesome experiences and they were great, but, I don't want to do that my whole life. And at some point I want to have a slower life. And now it's just time to build that. And so, because our goal is really to like not be working for money, so to speak, more working out of passion by the time we're 40. And so, so we feel like this is just another step towards that, to minimize our life, to make it simpler, and to make that happen for ourselves. And so, because that's our qualifier of success, is to have a life that we love, and that's the life we want when we really close our eyes and think about it. And so,
I love that.
And I mean, we had a lot of fun. We've traveled a lot of awesome places, and we still plan to travel quite a bit. And it'll always look different as our family grows and things like that. But I mean, we made it a commitment that every year we plan to travel outside the country on some level. And so,
cool.
So that's why we're going to Copenhagen this year. And
are you bringing Hayes?
Yeah, he's coming. And
nice.
So it should be a great adventure. But everybody says Copenhagen's a really like kid-friendly city. So, and we're like right in the city and everything. So it should be really walkable and easy to handle with him. And Mike's parents are actually coming. They had time off, and so it's kind of going to be a family trip, which is really cool. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, so we'll also have extra hands, which makes it even more fun. So
so how did you start to kind of like qualify that version of success for yourself? I would love to hear, just like, I mean, were you always doing this like in your marriage and in your business, or is it something that you grew to learn to do as you grew?
Oh man, I feel like I'm still working on it. I mean, I just wrote a post the other day about like handling the like, how do we qualify success in this industry, of blogging, and it's something I've really struggled with, because every single day you're asked to, but every single day like we're asked to share our numbers and tell brands and how does our engagement work, and we're reminded on Instagram all the time about performance, and this is performing better than your other posts and things like that. And I think it can feel like it's all down to like building more and more and more, but I think at some point I've had to just really ask myself, like, when is it just enough, and when can I just be happy where I'm at? And I love what I do so much that is a better qualifier of success than the actual numbers, whether that number is the amount you're being paid per hour, or the number of followers you have, or the likes you get, or page views, or, the list goes on. And, and I think when you have that perspective, and it's something I'm very much working on every day still, I think when you can grapple with that and figure out where you land in that world and what actually it means to, what it means to love what you do, then, and you're not just choosing to do something because it's going to get a lot of page views or likes or whatever, then you can feel this level of contentment and satisfaction in your work that goes far beyond just, those numbers, Yeah. And so it's, but I say that all knowing that it's hard as hell to deal with that every day. And
I was going to ask, how do you keep up that contentment? Because I was having a conversation in a mastermind that I'm in, and everybody was like, I feel kind of fine where I am, but then you get that kind of comparison and that envy of where other people are at and where they're growing, and you're like, should I be doing this and that? And do you ever fall victim to that kind of thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Especially as a mom, I think it's really hard because, you look at a lot of other moms on Instagram and stuff like that are running their business, and you're like, how are they doing this? And they even have more kids than I do. How is this even possible? And then I think what I've just kind of been trying to do is, be really honest and present where I'm at, and looking around and saying, do I love what I'm doing? Do I love my life as it is, and if I think beyond, what if it never goes any further than this? What if this is just it? Am I okay with it? And I can say yes, then I'm at the right place. And
I love
and then
that.
I'm just working for that. And I cannot take credit for those ideas and talks because that's totally Mike speaking out of me right now. But he has a much better perspective on things like that sometimes than I do. And so, because I can get really caught up in my head and stuff, but
that's what I do too. And then I have to turn to my husband. I'm like, I need to just emotionally vomit at you right now. And then he helps me turn it all into what I actually need it to be. And he's like, here's how we deal with this. I'm like, thank you.
Yes. See, this is why we need men.
Yes. Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard though. There's no doubt, but, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about how you have, for people who don't know about where you've been, how you grew the Fresh Exchange and how you then worked with Mike, and maybe just a short little version of that whole journey to where you are now. I know it's it's hard to be short because I've been following you for forever, so I know all the twists and turns, but yeah, I'd love to hear now you are living in Michigan, building your dream home, living with your husband Mike and your little baby Hayes, and you both work for the Fresh Exchange.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of always been this kind of, I think when you work for yourself, everything's sort of transforming, and it's always in this ebb and flow. And so there's definitely a whole story to it. But basically how I started was when I graduated from college, I graduated with a degree in media communications and studio management. And basically what I meant was I wanted to run my own studio as a designer and a creative. Okay. And when and Mike graduated at the same time, but when we graduated at the height of the recession, and it was absolutely there were no creative jobs, absolutely not a single one. You couldn't, it didn't even matter if you moved to New York. It was just dead out there. And in fact, people were firing art directors that had been in their position for years, Yeah. And so, because they had no work. And so Mike ended up finding a part-time job kind of as an intern at a local studio here in Traverse City of all places. And then I had still some leftover freelance work that I was doing for a couple agencies in LA, because they were actually some of these agencies were taking freelancers like me that were $25 an hour at the time, because that was something they could afford. And so I did that part-time as well. So we were not making much money. I was living with my parents and everything. And but my work was so not creative at all. Like it was like basically like somebody else designed it and then I was like making the edits, and it was just pixel pushing. It was awful.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I have to do something creatively. Like I'm so dying here. And so Mike was like, why don't you like start a blog? Because I was always like online and, you know, looking at things and finding inspiration. And he was always taking photos of like us like being around the area here. And so I was like, cool, yeah, like I'll start a blog. It sounds like fun. And I like had it for almost 6 or 8 months, and I never even looked at analytics or anything like that. I had a Twitter account. Sometimes I would post there, like things like that. And I eventually realized like there's like 1,000 page views a month, which isn't that much like then, but looking like when you don't anticipate that you actually like are getting anything, you know, like it's just this little place that you're just doing because you want to, like, and you have no expectation of it. I was like, whoa, like that's kind of cool. And then I started following some other bloggers and like seeing the world that was out there just out of curiosity. And I was like, you know, there's like this conference and it was Alt Summit. And I was like, you know, I kind of want to go to that. And it was during the time that it was actually going on. And Mike was like, we were really broke at the time. And Mike's like, I don't know if we can afford that. You know, it was like $3,000 total to get out there, everything. And he was like, why don't you like spend the next year and see, like, commit to like posting, you know, 3 or 4 times a day or a week, sorry, and just see if like it's something you really want to do. And I was like, okay. And so I like went after that and just kind of did it. And by the time the next tickets rolled around, not only did I have more pages going on my site, I was much more engaged on Twitter, much more engaged on Facebook, and I was becoming more professional about it and everything. But I also like was making connections with other bloggers and like realizing like how much I loved the community and how much like just creative freedom there was in it. And so I was like, cool, like let's do this. And I went and like it was like one of those confirming moments when I showed up there and met all these other people I've been talking to online. And I was like, wow, this is like what I'm supposed to do. Like hearing those stories, like, and everything. And I was like, these are my people. Like they get it. And so it was really awesome. And I think at that point, you know, Mike was still working on an agency and stuff, and he got in a different job at that point. But we decided, because I was getting a lot of design inquiries as well, and it was kind of at this point where I needed to either do one or the other full time. And instead, Mike was like, "Why don't I come on and help you?" And so we started working together at that point. And so that was kind of the beginning of us working together. And from there, it's just kind of continually transformed. We started our own studio and did like full-time studio work under our studio name Wild Measure. But over time, we kind of realized I kind of, in all honesty, lost a lot of passion for branding. And I really wanted to pursue more blogging. And when it was about the time that I got pregnant with Hayes, that I started realizing what I was really passionate about. And I lost a lot of passion for branding. And I really wanted to focus on doing work that really fulfilled me, because I knew my time was going to be really spread thin. And I wanted to focus in on what that meant. And Mike still loves branding. In fact, he's absolutely brilliant at it. And he's very talented. And so he has continued doing branding work, and he actually took a lot of our clients on. So we closed, so to speak, we absorbed Wild Measure into the Fresh Exchange. And now at this point, Mike really runs his own entity, so to speak, of Megan Gilger, but we still work together. He just like runs under his own name, and he's really, what he's doing now is we after a lot of talk and stuff, we felt like I needed to spend some time working specifically in the Fresh Exchange and building out a lot of what I hope it to be as you know, over the next few years. And eventually, like, I think he will come back into the company, but it will be in a different way. I wouldn't say he's out of the company, because I mean, we work together. Like, we just went and shot something together. Like, we work together. About 35% of our day is spent working together, and then the rest of the time he spends working, he has a large consulting job that he's doing where he's helping a startup. He's like helping, he's basically like their creative director that they have on like in their team right now as a freelancer.
Oh, nice.
And so he's building out like all of the brand for this huge startup, and then he will walk out. So once they get to the point where they are like self-sufficient and going, and they need an internal team, and so that's when he'll like step aside, and because he doesn't want to work internal at all,
right?
And so, but this
that
is
sounds like the dream.
He will have done that before. Yeah, I know, and he loves it. He's doing a great job with it, and so he basically works more or less like a free-flowing 8 to 5-ish kind of job, but we work from home together, and like we're literally sitting in our studio space together, but he's working on one project and I'm doing this with you. So but
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's totally in the world of what I'm doing, and we talk about it all the time, and he's more or less, Mike likes to say, he's the CEO of the Fresh Exchange. He just isn't the creative of the Fresh Exchange. I'm the creative, I'm that vision, and I direct all that now. So, which works out really well. And it's just taken time for us to figure that out, and even for us to have a kid to figure it out, you know. And,
right.
And
do you
so,
think it's something you're probably constantly figuring out, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think like 30 was a big shift for both of us. Like he went through becoming 30 before I did, and he definitely felt a lot of ownership over what he wanted out of his career in a way that I don't think he had before. And so now I've been going through that again. And that's why he took this job, was because he's like, this is what I really want to be doing, and I feel really fulfilled by it, and I'm really happy doing it. And so, and it wasn't something I wanted to do. And I think when you work together as a couple, you have to be okay with those moments, and you have to be really honest and check in with each other that like you're both doing that, or else it can become this heavy burden. And Mike and I went through a few things where we were like, he was really disappointed that I was more passionate about something, and I wasn't more into something, but it was because my passion wasn't there, and I didn't really want to be doing that. And he would get frustrated when he wanted to do that. And, you know, and I think you have to be able to be okay with having those hard conversations and figuring out how to work together, and how that shifts yearly or even monthly sometimes. And then it's not always a 50-50 thing, you know?
Yeah.
So,
do you have anything like scheduled in to your life where you're like, okay, like let's have these hard conversations, or like let's talk about the business, or anything like that? Like where you intentionally bring them up, or do they like kind of build up and then you have to like let them out?
It kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say we schedule it, but there's definitely like moments like where, you know, after if we've had a day and we'll go on a walk or something, and Mike will be like, you know, I'm like really thinking about this, you know, we should talk about it tonight. Or, you know, and we try not to talk too much business, like especially now Hayes is like really aware of what's going on and what we're talking about, and things like that. We try not to like discuss those things in front of him too much. And so like a lot of times, like last night, or no, 2 nights ago, it was a Friday night, you know, and we had made dinner, and we were having a glass of wine, and he was like, I really want to talk about, you know, what we were talking about earlier. And like, so we sat down and like spent 2 hours talking through, you know, some of how we wanted to move forward with the Fresh Exchange, and like how, what a next step was. And, you know, and we took that time in a specific way at a time when we both weren't distracted, and we were both mentally available to really have that conversation. And so we both felt really heard. And I think that's something that we've learned is really important in working together and being married in general, is just being able to like have a conversation where you both feel heard and understood, and it's acknowledged, and you're both present. And so even if that means you have to wait a little bit and hold it in and wait, it really is helpful, and it's something that we've learned over this past year. So
yeah, that's really nice. I know with my husband, we usually have to like, I'll be like, here's what I want to talk about, and here's how I want, not like how I want the conversation to go, but like, if you're distracted, like, let's not have this conversation now, but I need to talk to you, and this is the mode we need to be in, and so when are you ready? So that's always good to have those expectations before you go into some of those conversations, for sure.
Absolutely. Because if you catch somebody at the wrong time, it can be absolutely awful, and then it's not productive. And sometimes it can actually be hurtful to the relationship if it's not done at a proper time for both parties. So
yeah. So I would love to go into like where you are at with the Fresh Exchange and how you've kind of transitioned from doing more of that branding studio work to moving into like seasonalities, and you're almost like, I want to say like a magazine, but not at all. Like I just, right?
Yes,
like
I mean, literally I've like taken that from a content perspective of how I even plan out my content. It's all organized. Probably, I don't know because I've never worked in a magazine, but it's probably pretty similar to how a magazine would approach their content.
And is this bringing you a lot of joy?
Yes. And it's really funny because Mike and I laughed about it. I am not organized, and it sounds crazy, but I am really not. And he is my organization, and because he literally helped me set up how I need to approach this after I let me step back. So when we moved to Michigan, the whole thing about why we moved to Michigan was I was like, man, we bought this land thinking it was going to be a place that we would end up putting a summer house or something that was like this small little shack of a cabin that we could hide out in for the summer months. And then about the same time that we bought the land, somebody made an offer on our house in Raleigh that we just couldn't refuse. And we were like, well, do we want to move? Like, should we move? I guess we're moving. and so that's kind of, and then everything else lined up after that. And when we got here, I just realized how much this place, like anytime I'm away from here, I still ache to be back here. And what I ache for is that like every day is a new opportunity. Like there's this constant reminder that like the world shifts, like nothing is permanent, nothing is forever. And I love that. Like I wake up every morning now and I can see Lake Michigan and I can watch it change color throughout the day, you know, and it sounds so silly, but I realized that that's something I needed in my life. And I had to have that. And it's the biggest inspiration to me. And so I don't know. So when I was like, I moved here, I was like, gosh, like I like had this like existential like drama in my life. And I was like trying to figure my whole world out because it was just such a shift. And so I was like, I feel like I'm not writing stuff that I really believe in. And I gotta figure this out. And so I actually took the whole month of January in many ways off. Like I almost took 6 weeks off in terms of like hard work. And I spent some time doing some type work and things like that on the side to like make some money. But I didn't really blog a lot. And it was really quiet because I felt so much pressure, like what we were talking about earlier, like all the numbers and the growth and things like that. And it was like, I just feel like I'm just getting this rabbit hole that I can't get out of and I have to figure it out. And I felt really out of control. And so I talked to Mike, and it was just one day I was actually doing an interview with the girl that wrote the story for Midwest Living that I did in August. And she was talking about, you know, like why I love gatherings and like all this stuff. And I like rattled off all this stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like, this is it. Like, and I walked out of the interview and I like wrote it all down, and Mike came off a call and I was like, this is it. Like, this is like everything that I need to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I feel fulfilled with. And I wrote out everything. And it was so like, it felt like all of a sudden, like everything just cleared, you know? And
awesome.
Yeah. And after that, I spent a good few weeks just working through what that meant. And Mike helped me get really organized. And I set up this whole calendar that's like month by month. I created themes, and I realized everything I wanted to talk about was about seasonal living because that is my thing. Like, that's how I feel the best. Like, that is who I am. And to not embrace that is to not do what I'm supposed to do. And so I'm a geek about seasonal living. And I had no real idea until I really sat down and really asked myself what I wanted out of this space. And so it shifted, you know. I felt like I spent a lot of my 20s, you know, focused on building a brand that was about design and everything. And it was still adventure. And and all of that, but it felt more like I was just exploring the world, you know, and figuring things out. And then it's like I just woke up one day, I'm 30 years old, and this is what I want, you know? And so, and so I felt really, really good when it happened. And it's still been like, it's been a lot of work, a lot of mental work to like figure out, okay, am I writing things that I'm really passionate about? And I have to check myself that every day. And if I'm not passionately writing, then I'm not going to post today, you know? And this weekend was one of those, like, I was like, I have this topic, but I don't really want to hit it. And I can't really hit it. Like, I'm not there. So I was like, I'm not going to write it. And that's okay. And because I'd rather write something that I'm deeply passionate about than to fake it.
Oh, and I have this like, I do my newsletters every Tuesday, and I just switched it to like, I put like almost in quotes, to almost every Tuesday, because there's some Tuesdays where I'm not inspired to write anything. I feel like I don't have anything good to give. And then I beat myself up about not doing a newsletter, or I write a really shitty newsletter, and that doesn't feel good. So I am learning how to do that.
And I really don't know how there's people who do it where they like they pump out all that stuff and it's still really good. And maybe they have that feeling too, and they just go through it. I don't know, but I've just gotten to a point where I can't do that, and I'm okay with it. Like, I'm grappling with the fact that sometimes I'm just not there, and that's okay. Because and like one of our readers said, she was like, we don't want the spread thin version of you. We want the like full version of you. And I think that's really true. Yeah. And she was like, I'd rather wait like a week to get a post from you than to get one every day that's not fully you. And I was like, okay, thank you. Because
then you're building up, you're like intentionally building up that brand that is fully you instead of like half-assing it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think the internet makes you feel like, okay, I put something out there, and like in 30 seconds it's washed over, you know? It's just like it's under the wave, it's gone. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on always feeling like you need to turn something out. And so I'm always trying to handle that, because even with Instagram, like, you know, you put something up and then it's like, okay, well, it's gone. Like, it's deep in the scroll world, and who knows what's going to happen with that. And I think instead you have to think, do I love saying this? Do I love this picture? Do I love this? Like, do I feel like this is something that's truly what I want to be creating and putting out in the world? Is it making the world a better place, you know? And
and what has that done to your metrics? Just like, I mean, have you looked into it? Because it probably does better, right?
Yeah, on Instagram, you definitely get more engagement. And I think that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to focus on now, is more about connecting to the people that I already have, that are loyal followers, that are the people that have been there a long time, you know, and like engaging with them and following them, and like, you know, actually like taking a moment to go on their blog, and like, if they commented on mine, like to actually like read one of their posts and make a comment. And instead of thinking about it being more about building a bigger following, because in all honesty, like, my Instagram was driving me crazy. And this is what prompted that post, was because and this is going to sound absolutely insane, and this is what made me feel like I had to handle all this stuff, was like, and Mike and I would talk about it every day. It would be like, I'm at 37.6. And then all of a sudden I'd be at 37.7. And then the next morning I'd be at 37.6 again. And it was driving me insane. I'm like, why are these like 20 to 40 people that keep following or unfollowing, or a bot that their thing disappears or whatever? Like, why is it driving me so crazy?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's that like me, and I don't think I'm single in that. Like, I think there's a lot of people that they go through that, and it's like, how is it that, like, and so I had to be like, okay, why does this bother me? And it was just like, for whatever reason, that's where I was finding like that qualification of success, was if I got more, then I was doing good, you know. And but instead thinking, okay, instead looking at how people were engaging with the content and like talking to me. And there's a few people I feel like have done it super well. Like Will Taylor from Bright Bazaar, like he's so good at just like talking to people and all of his followers and making a point to really have great conversations with them on his Instagram and on his blog. And it's just like who he is. And I'm like, okay, Will's doing it right. I mean, he also is getting like tons of followers at the same time because he's absolutely brilliant and creative and super cool. So, but I find him really inspiring because he really does intentionally connect with his followers and readers and everything. And I think that's a real inspiration.
Mm-hmm. So, and who is this again?
Will Taylor from Bright Bazaar.
Okay. I don't follow him.
He's super cool. And he's like the nicest guy ever. So he really is.
Yeah. No, I love finding those like inspiring Instagrams where you're just like, I can take kind of what you're doing and hopefully infuse that a little bit into my own, social media or branding or anything like that. It's really nice to see when people are doing it well.
Yes, he totally is. So.
Awesome. So I have one last question for you, and this is the fun one. All of this has been really fun. But are there any, or has there been anything that you're like really loving right now that you want to spread the word about? And it can really be anything.
Man. Well, the thing that's like, the thing that's been on my mind a lot, I guess, is, and I recently talked about it on our blog, but and this is not to be political, but our Great Lakes are like totally at a very scary place in terms of like, there's this oil pipeline that is just eroding underneath in the Straits of Mackinac. Yes. And and if anything happens, if it leaks, like it's in the Straits, so the oil would spread in multiple directions and basically just devastate the Great Lakes in general, because they wouldn't be able to contain it. And then if it happened when it was in the winter, it would even be worse. And then with the current budget cuts that are being proposed, it would eliminate tons of money that would help with that cleanup if anything were to happen. So there's a huge proposal going through right now, and we're giving as much money as we can to help this happen, because it is so important to not just our livelihood, but all the people in the area that we love working with and that we believe in what they're doing. Like if anything happens to the Great Lakes, it would absolutely just eliminate everything that we love. And it would be so hard on not just this state, it would be hard on the world. I mean, it's the largest body of fresh water in the world. And then there's Nestle trying to pull the water out. And like, there's all these things that are coming into the Great Lakes that are harmful to it. And so it's like, it's such a heavy thing on my head and mind and heart right now, like that I can't, it really gets to me. And so I'm like really into that right now. And so I'm really into, and there's a really cool organization here in Traverse City called Flow, which is for the love of water. And they created this amazing documentary with Patagonia and some of their film guys that are Michiganders, but they live in California now. And they like traveled the whole pipeline from the Upper Peninsula to the Lower Peninsula into Canada to see where, if it broke at any point, what it would affect. And like the beauty that they see along this pipeline is just absolutely unreal. And I highly suggest people watch it, because it's just beautiful. Because you don't even think that Michigan, like even somebody who lives in Michigan, like I was blown away. And I've been to so many of these places, and I was like, my gosh, it looks like Big Sur. Like, how is it that that's Michigan? And they showed the beauty of this area so well and how it would affect so many different people. And
no, I'm gonna watch that tonight. Actually, I was like, this is perfect. Okay,
I have a blog post about it, so
I will link to that for sure. And I moved back I grew up on the lakes. I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, so we're on Lake Erie, and I wanted to move back to like this region, and now I'm in Cleveland, still on Lake Erie, and that's such a huge part of my heart. And
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was
runs through there.
Yeah. I always felt this like kinship with you because you're like another Great Lake lover. And I was like, yes, me too. Like, I don't really want to go to the big cities. Like, I want to be on the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
It definitely
I
love this area.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, the pipeline runs through there too. So I mean,
so is it in danger of being, it's like in danger of leaking now, correct? So
basically it was Enbridge who owns the pipeline. It was a promise for 50 years. It is 60 something years old now.
Okay.
So it's 10 years past its due date kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it is a scary thing because, and they've in the documentary, they show like going and they swim along it because what it is sitting at the bottom of the straits. So what the proposal is even to like, they want to shut down the pipeline, but they also want to take it out and run it along the side of the bridge instead. They're not eliminating it because it's definitely a necessity, but they want to like run it alongside the bridge so that it's above the water so that it can be easily maintained. And I think that's super smart, you know, and it makes sense to me, but you know, the world is an interesting place.
Right.
So,
all right. This is my evening. I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I will link to all that.
Awesome. Yeah.
So are there any
crazy things?
Yeah. Are there any other, like, are you launching anything? Do you want to promote anything or tell people about what they should go find, like where they should find you or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, checking out our blog. I mean, we post there 3 to 5 times a week and like subscribing to our newsletter is great because, now that we do the seasonal living, we send out 2 newsletters a month that are, the first one introduces the season and talks about all these different, it has all this exclusive content about seasonal living. And I write like a dedicated editor's letter in there and everything about that season. It kind of like prepares you for what's to come. And then every month we send out another newsletter that introduces our contributor that we have that month, as well as offers up a list of 5 things to do that month to make that month great. And we do a little video to introduce the month and the theme that we have. So I would love to have, have more people along for that ride. So, and that's just our month. I guess it would be under the update section of that would be the list. Would be the updates list. So,
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, so you don't have to sign up for daily to get that, so you don't have to get all the posts all the time in your inbox. But I mean, two a month, I think people will enjoy. And so, so we would love to have more people join us for that.
Awesome. Well, we will link to that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
No, I think people are awesome. So I guess.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kelsey. It was great to catch up.
You too. Thank you to our sponsor, Audible.com, for supporting the show. Please head to audibletrial.com/pinegateroad to get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute and head to iTunes to rate and review the show. It makes a big difference in growing the show, and I'll be here giving you a virtual high five behind the scenes. You can follow along with the studio for branding tips, advice, and general inspiration on Instagram, username pinegateroad, or by heading to pinegateroad.com for everything else happening in the studio. Sending lots of love and wishing you an awesome week. You've got this.